Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's Nate and Francis. Nate, you are in the last month, right? Of not being a dad yet. And you will be a dad soon.
That's very true, yeah. So basically we're recording this on Tuesday, and Friday is 36 weeks for Cynthia. So realistically speaking, yeah, I mean, if it were when I was, not yet born, I arrived very early. And I was, surprise, born at 35 weeks. So our daughter is already doing better than me in terms of like sticking to a schedule.
Boy, I'll say.
Yeah, for real. Oh, fuck off. Whatever. Yes, I was late for this recording. A million things had to happen today, to include getting fucking rained on, because we're having the weirdest, coldest summer I think I've ever experienced in my life.
Well, that jet stream is going to collapse, and you guys are going to, England is just going to fall into an ice age. It'd be very funny.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, and the fact that basically no buildings in this country are designed to handle actual serious cold, because it's just so uncommon here. Certainly in southern England,
the British are just under the impression that somebody's going to level their cities every 60 years or so, and they can just rebuild.
But rebuild with learning literally no lessons of the previous era.
None whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I've noticed here is that, like, if you got into the kind of weather that we have pretty much everywhere in America outside of, like, certain extreme regions, where if stuff isn't insulated, like pipes will freeze, like, they don't have that weather here, and so nothing is built to that standard, and it's like, yeah, it's fine, I'd say in aggregate, houses are just like kind of colder and draftier here because like they're less like mega insulated the way that ours are. But at the end of the day, it's like that's because it doesn't have to be. But maybe in the future it'll have to be, because we're in the same latitude. It's basically Norway, so It's like, y'all let me know what's going to happen.
Yeah, at some point in time, maybe Britain will get themselves together. You guys have started to figure out air conditioning. Once again, I think that we can make a lot of money if we just start importing box fans into England. And selling those around.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the box fans is that like they don't fit in the what's it called? They don't fit in the windows here. I mean, obviously the ones with American like the little gripper feet, like those would be okay. But people have like the side, swing open windows and stuff like that. So everyone's like, oh, we can't wedge it in the window. It's like, right, but the point is like to put it in just a place where it can blow air, even if you put it on the floor.
Yeah, it's the moving air is what's important there. Although we got for our American listeners who know about Aldi and the Isle of Shame that they have in the middle of it, where it's just like, here's some shit that's cheap. We bought a fan that has like two. It's short and it's a window unit, but it's longer than it is wide, so it's not a square, and it's got two fans on it, so you can have them blow in the same direction, or you can have them circulate. You can have them blow in or out. So that might work. We'll have to get some of those and import those to England and make a couple bucks that way.
Yeah. Agreed, man.
We'll have to put different plugs on them, though. I think. I don't know anything about how all of that stuff works. So maybe we won't import a bunch of fire hazards to England. Nate, I do have something for you, though. I have created kind of a checklist. Or maybe just here's some things to keep an eye out for, because we had our daughter about 8 years ago, and there are things that went right and there are things that didn't go right, specifically for me. Like, obviously, My wife was pregnant and had a baby, so everything went right there. But like, there's a lot of information, and there's always a lot of advice that comes to you from other people regarding kids, and I'm sure you've heard all of it. Like, you're in your late 30s at this point. You know kids. You've helped with kids. Kids are gross. Kids will shit themselves constantly. Will throw up. Will never fully appreciate anything that you do for them. All that stuff. But I think that what's really important is that there's always that sometimes parents can get too involved in the kids, and then they forget what it is to have to do things with each other, and things to look out for with one another. So, I hope you'll indulge me with some of these things.
Yeah, of course. I'm curious. Go ahead and fire away.
Yeah. So, and like I said, some of these come from my own experience of I should have done these, and if I was going to have another baby, we definitely would. So, the first one is, my assumption is that you're going to be present for the birth itself. You're not going to be like the cartoon character dad from the 1950s smoking a cigarette outside in the waiting room.
That's correct. I plan on being there. A friend of mine, I don't know if he listens to the show, but former, Army colleague said, he said, stay above the sheet. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, what it means is whatever they're going to do for getting the baby out is going to be below the sheet. You don't need to see that. Don't worry about it.
Now, look, I watched Below the Sheet, and it was fascinating. So that really depends on how much into, like, you know, watching medical stuff you're into, because look, this is probably going to be the only time you get to witness a live birth.
He didn't say because it was gross. He said it because it's scary, because you don't know what's going on, and that like it's very easy to assume that everything is like going wrong when it's completely going normal. And so it's like whether they're like having to make incisions, pulling, whatever. It's like, and if they have to use forceps, anything along those lines, it's like, oh my god, fuck, everything's falling. Like this, it's horrible. And it's like, no, it's fine. It's just this is the first time you've ever seen a live birth, and it's also your child and your partner. So it makes it more psychologically intense. And he's like, look, it's going to be fucking tough for her. You can just hang out above the sheet with her and like keep her company and, you know, be there with her, and don't worry about that. That was his advice.
That is absolutely if that's a good, and it also depends, like ask your wife where you want to be, because
right.
Like,
and also this may be a moot point too, because we're not sure if she's going to have a C-section. So we'll find out one way or the other.
Sure. But look, this is for everybody, you know, and we're going to be kind of speaking in things in gendered terms, but you know, keep this down to birth haver and birth supporter. Cynthia is the birth haver. You're going to be the birth supporter on this. And like I said, also I kind of looked at it the way that I would look at when I was overseas. The local Afghans that were on the military bases that we were on, if they weren't freaking out, I wasn't going to freak out. So like when there was night fires going on that they didn't tell anybody about, but the Afghan soldiers all seemed to be, you know, chill. They weren't running around shooting off into the distance. Look at the doctors. If the doctors are all like, oh yeah, okay, we got to do this, we got to do that, when they start to get panicked, that's when maybe you start to worry.
Well, God willing, that doesn't happen, but yeah, I understand what you mean.
Right. So but you know, the entire birthing process, and my wife was in labor for like 40 plus hours. So
Jesus.
Not everybody is going to be in those kind of dire straits. But, you know, as soon as the labor kind of starts, understand that your wife is probably not going to sleep. So you are not going to sleep either. You're an ex-soldier. You've got that, though. Like, I'm sure that you will be okay with that one. My problem was that I did end up dropping off while we were in the hospital because she had to be overnight. She got the epidural, so I thought she was going to be fine. And then I passed out, and then she was kind of mad at me about that because I slept for a couple of hours while she just kind of laid there alone in a hospital room at night. So don't do that to your wife or to your partner who's out there. Next up, once that baby comes out, they're going to put the baby on your wife. They're going to put the baby on you. Take lots of pictures of the baby on your wife, no matter what, no matter how kind of gross the baby might be. Because later on, that's all going to look, you know, it's all going to be wonderful, beautiful things that you share amongst everybody else. So make sure that you're taking lots of photos. I failed on that one. I didn't take a whole lot of photos, so we don't have a lot of, like, you know, fresh from the womb, you know, 7-minute old baby photos kind of thing. So keep that in mind. Have your phone ready. Have you know, but again, as your friend said, for that is also going to be an above the sheet kind of thing.
Well, right.
You know?
I'm not planning on taking photos of the fucking birth canal. Let's be real here. Like, yes, Roger. I know people do it. Believe me.
I know women who have gotten mirrors so that they can watch the birthing process. And again, I watched it. And it is interesting to watch. I'll say that.
I would say that as a couple, as a family, Cynthia and I are pretty big on privacy, even if, like, obviously I have to document some of my own life and share things as part of being a content creator, as it were. And so, you know, I think that, like, as regards to this stuff, there are some things that I'll take pictures of for her. But yeah, as regards sharing things, like, we're probably going to seem very modest, just in the sense that, like, there's just, you know, it's going to be for, like, us and for close family and some friends, and that's it. But right, I take your point, though, and I'm right. Believe me or not, I've got a Google Doc open and I'm writing it down.
Well, we use something called Back Then. That's it's like a way to share photos of children, but if you have older parents who aren't necessarily on Facebook, or you don't want to put your kid up on Facebook, you can use Back Then. Basically it's just email invites. I think our Back Then has maybe about 20 or 30 people on it who, because we do the same. We don't really post our daughter to Instagram, like her face and things like that. Like we'll show her, but like head down doing something else. So I get it. But if you want to do something that has more, that's more for the family, back then has been great for us. We've been using that since she was born. And it's great because we have so far 8 years of like, great photos. Because, you're going to take a million photos with your phone as you do because it's 2023 and that's what we do with our phones. But back then is the place where you're like, okay, this is where I want to share the really nice photos that we took of the kid doing, in their Sunday best or dressed up for Christmas or something like that. But you don't want to put it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, things like that. So highly recommend that one. I can't remember who owns that. I think Kodak does. So it also comes with like, hey, if you like these, you can turn them into photo books and we'll send them to you.
All right. This all sounds good.
After the baby, every hospital is going to be a little bit different. I don't know how long you guys are gonna stay there. I don't know how much you've looked into postpartum depression.
Little.
And
we're going to stay in the hospital probably depending on whether or not it's a vaginal birth or C-section. Anywhere from 12. Post-birth 12 to like 48 hours. It just depends. Yeah. There's in the UK, like, it really depends on the hospital how much room you've got, but like the hospital we're registered in has a pretty good reputation for everything with maternity care. And as I understand it, we will be able to have our own room. And so realistically, if Cynthia has to stay, I can stay also. It's pretty Spartan in terms of like what accommodations they have, but I can stay overnight. Like some hospitals in the UK, like you only can visit during visiting hours. But if she can't, I'm going to have to go home and get the car seat, for example, because I can't bring it to the hospital when the baby's being born. And once the baby is born, we have to come home. The baby's got to be in a car seat because we're going to take a cab home because we don't have a car. And I would prefer not to have to take the baby on a bus. So I don't want her first experience to be the South London bus that never comes on time. So I'll have to go home anyway to grab stuff. That's as I understand it.
Sure. I slept on a couch that they had there. They thankfully we had the same thing. We had a room to ourselves, really nice hospital that specifically for maternity.
Mm-hmm.
And they had it's like, we've got the bed for your wife, we've got the little bassinet for the baby, there's the couch for your ass. But it was at least like a long enough couch that I could lay down on it. And I think I took a laptop in and an HDMI cable, and the first movie that Lily watched when she was a day old was Princess Bride. Now, I watched she slept on my chest the entire time. But first thing, so we had some entertainment there. We were there for a couple of days too. Also very nice is that the nurses will change the baby's diaper for you. Like, you don't have to do that for the first couple of days.
That's not the case in the United Kingdom.
It's not. No. That sucks. It was really nice because the nurses was like, oh, well, I should learn. The nurses just like, you'll learn. Don't worry. You're going to have, this baby's going to be using diapers for a couple of years.
I've been instructed to bring some kind of like sensitive skin cream because apparently people have said it's extremely good to put like, gentle, sensitive skin cream on the baby when you put the first diaper on, because the first poop is really gross and sticky and hard to clean up. And so they have said that that this is the thing. What is it? Meconium or whatever is the gross, sort of in utero intestinal byproduct that the first.
Yeah, the amniotic fluid poop. Yeah.
And so I've been told, hey, it's really gross and it's really hard to clean up. So slap some fucking Aquaphor on the baby's hind parts and put the diaper on.
It just slips right off, man.
Yeah, apparently that's the story. Yeah. Hilariously, my intern was helping me with the session, but I gave him the option of going upstairs to work on a Trash Future edit or to listen in on this recording. And the minute we started talking about baby poop, he's like, I'm going to go work upstairs. So it's like, respect. He's 17. He hopefully doesn't have to worry about this.
Sure.
Hopefully, fucking use protection. Hopefully you don't have to worry about this.
Yeah, this is old man shit. This isn't for 17-year-olds. You got too much making mistakes and drinking booze to do before you have to deal with amniotic fluid poops.
Yes, jeez, yeah. Amniotic fluid, which is primarily generated by the baby peeing in utero, which I learned recently.
Yeah, it's great, just floating in your own piss. We all start as posters.
What? We all exactly. I was going to say, like actually, you're born completely online, and then you're ripped out of it, and whether or not you return to that fetal state is up to you.
Return, but it's just a jar of piss that you float around in. Okay, so having a baby, that is going to change your brain chemistry, and it's going to change your wife's brain chemistry. Now, we know that it's going to change your wife's because obviously she's the one growing a baby.
And it kind of has already. I mean, I've noticed, not in a bad way, but I have noticed, like, you know, there's certain things that, like, are just, you know, different in terms of, you know, considerations, things that, you know, please or displease her and stuff like that. Like, I don't think that's sharing family business to say, like, I just have noticed a difference. And I think obviously it's a lot has to do with the fact that, like, it's not as if I don't acknowledge that this is real, and I'm very excited, but it must be so different when it's literally kicking you every day, like multiple times a day. You know what I mean? When it's that real.
Yeah, it's a lot different when you wake up and you're just like, oh, I can't breathe, or I only slept, you know, 2 to 6 hours a night because there's a child doing somersaults inside of me.
Yes.
But once that baby comes out, and I didn't really notice this until like my daughter was born and they handed it to me, and it was like a hard shift inside of my brain of, oh, I would literally kill anybody who tried to hurt this thing. And that is, you know, the brain chemistry shift that's going to happen to you as well, is that it's going to become you're not going to become obviously some
like Marine
online
Todd, but yeah,
you're not going to become Marine Todd about it, but it is just like, oh, I've never actually felt like I would hurt somebody until now, or that I would allow myself to be hurt to protect this kid. And I know that you already have a lot of like those instincts in you because you've taken care of kids.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had it be like that explicit in terms of like, but what I have had before is there's been times in my life when I've, you know, taken care of kids, and like sometimes kids who are in not great states, and like the thought crossed my mind, you know, at those times when I realized, looking back on it, because some people get really weird about adoption and like, oh, what they're not actually your kids and kind of stuff. It's like, actually they are, like, really, that all that shit about genetic legacy is fucking insane to me. But the times in my life when I've, you know, taken care of kids, I always remember thinking like, you know, if some weird circumstance changed and all of a sudden I was this kid's sole provider, like it wouldn't change anything. Like they beat my kid, like that'd be my life from now on, and that's fine. Like that sensation I understand, but I've never had it be actually like, no, formally this is your kid. So I know that's going to like change things. And there have been times when it's been weird, when it's caught me off guard. We were doing the thing where we did an in-store visit, because at this store in the UK that does a lot of nursery and baby stuff as well, like if you did an in-person sort of appointment visit and they walked you through like sort of the stuff they had available, you could get like a pretty significant discount if you bought from them. So we did that. And one of the things we had to do was to try on I tried on the Baby Bjorn. And it was funny because on one hand, the release mechanism on the Baby Bjorn is almost the exact same as the T10 Delta parachute, so it's just very, very strange. A lot of the way you hook up the parachute, like you don't hook up the parachute that way, but like when you land and then you collapse the canopy, like that stuff's almost identical. And then similarly, the on the stroller we got, for example, the harness to hold the baby in place is almost identical in concept to the way that the seatbelt works on a UH-60 Blackhawk. So that's very funny. But wearing the like very life realistic, filled with sand 7-pound baby to sort of demonstrate what the weight will feel like when you're wearing a baby in a Baby Bjorn, I had this very, very strange sensation where, because I was just sort of like, this is going to be my actual child. This will be real. This won't be a dummy, and this will be my actual child. And like, it struck me in a very strange way that I wasn't expecting. That's the thing. And so I was like, well, if that's happening with a fucking sand-filled puppet, what's going to happen when it's real?
Yeah. Wire daughter versus cloth daughter, I guess. Yeah, the baby wearing is fantastic. You should absolutely baby wear. We also were people who we have a friend, another couple who is like us. They're older. They're in their late 30s, early 40s, who just had a daughter. Yeah, just had a kid, and they're very, very into the baby wearing and everything. And they were just saying, it's like, how long does it take before you're like ready to go back out? And I think we were out at a restaurant 3 weeks after our kid was born with the kid. Just strap the kid to your body and go, you know, like the kid's gonna, like, the first like 3 months is kind of like the fourth trimester, where the only thing the kid is gonna do is eat and sleep and poop, and there's really nothing in between that they need to do. So you can take that kid out, and I would highly recommend it, just to start kind of, I don't want to say desensitizing, but like getting the kid used to being out and being among other people and things like that. You're gonna get some people who are gonna want to come and like look at the brand new fresh baby and all that, and it's gonna be annoying. But it's gonna be good for you to get out and do all of that stuff. So after having a baby, I said, I don't know how much you've done looking into postpartum depression, but it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. Just in, it can come, it can be real. The thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about is that when we think postpartum depression, we think the woman who throws her baby out the window or something like that. When like that is a very, very extreme case that is incredibly rare, but like just feeling depressed for like 3 months afterwards is very normal. And your wife or your birth haver may not want to talk about that. You definitely should, though. Make sure that they're doing okay, because mental health afterwards is going to be a big thing. Because, like, here's the thing: you're going to have this kid, and then you're going to fuck up somehow. Like, one way or another, you're going to fuck up. It's invariable. Something's going to happen. And you're going to be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have used that powder. Or this thing gave the kid a rash, and now they're crying and they're upset, and I can't do anything until the rash goes away. And you get that, like, what am I doing? Should I even have a kid? Who am I, of all people, to have a child? And you got to keep in mind, the dumbest motherfuckers in the world have kids, and those kids turn out fine. And we are smart motherfuckers, so we're going to be okay as well. But keep in mind with your wife that there could be complications afterwards. There could be problems with, feeling depressed, and that's normal. And sometimes it goes away, but also just be like, look, if you need to go talk to somebody, if you need something, you can have that. Just make sure that they have those options. A lot of women just kind of power through it. And are fine on the other end. Like I said, this is very much a brain chemistry thing that's happening here.
Sure.
A baby fucks up your brain and body for the rest of your life. And that's just a reality of every woman. Your body and your brain is always completely changed after carrying a baby to term. So
something that I would say too is also with Cynthia is that, obviously our baby is due in the beginning of September. And then we're heading into the season of dark and cold and miserable in the United Kingdom. And so I know that like it's going to be a challenge, as is with the sleep disruptions and, like you said, the physical disruptions, all these things. And like I'm not trying to hand wave anything, because I realize that like I'm trying to be aware of it while also realizing that I'm not going to know what it'll look like until it happens. But I think that like I trust Cynthia to let me know, and we have good communication, and obviously like I'm prepared to do everything if I have to while she's recovering. And, frankly, I have time off from work. She has time off from work, like to a significant degree. So I'll be part-time until the end of the year, after a period of just being completely off. So like we're in a much more fortunate, privileged position, but like I'm absolutely planning on, just doing the checkup and making sure that she understands this stuff. And like, we're pretty open about those kinds of conversations. And I recognize that like, it's going to be tough, because it's just going to be like, what do not only do you have to deal with all of these changes to yourself, but then also like you have a baby who needs care and attention all the time. And as what everyone's told me, from the early days, like that, especially in the first couple of months, like the baby basically has to eat and poop and get changed every 2 to 3 hours. That's just how it is.
The first 2 weeks of our baby, neither one of us slept for longer than 2 to 4 hours, I think, because my wife was breastfeeding at the time too. So we, I distinctly like have a memory of waking my wife up at 4 o'clock in the morning and feeding her like fish sticks that I had just baked, because she had to eat something. And I was like, look, I know you don't want to keep eating just the same foods over and over. I made some fish sticks. Here you go. And I also remember sitting, like, I took the kid downstairs. She'd been, I don't know, maybe a week old at this point. And I told my wife, I was like, look, we've got, I can feed the kid while you go ahead and sleep. And my wife slept for 8 hours. And the entire time I sat at my computer holding my daughter, watching the first season of True Detective. Just sat there and watched 8 episodes of True Detective straight through while Beth got a nap in. So, when you can, definitely give her those opportunities. So another thing that ends up happening to a lot of parents, usually as the kid grows a little bit older, is you end up losing your identity into the child, and you no longer become Nate. You become, child's father. Don't let that happen. Don't let that happen to you, or don't let that happen to Cynthia, because that is that's always just really sad. Like I always hate to see like adults with name tags with just like their child's name on it, because who the fuck are you, man? You lived for like 40 years. You've got stories too. I don't care about, your 3-year-old doesn't have any cool stories. Let me know your stories. So that was a big, like, Beth and I were very just like, we want to make sure that we maintain our identities. Obviously, while, this whole podcast popped up during, like after my child was born. So, you obviously you have your habits, you have your hobbies, and you have the things that you guys already do. And I'm, I don't worry too much about it happening with you, but it is something that I like to point out to new parents, especially if you're a little bit younger, that you need to have your own hobbies when you have a kid too. Because at some point in time, you're going to be like, I need to stop looking at this kid because the kid is pissing me off. One way or another, it's going to happen. It's fine. Doesn't mean that you don't love your kid, but you need to go have like a Warhammer 40K thing to paint, or a podcast to record, or produce, or something along those lines. So, make sure that you maintain who you are during this time, because otherwise you're going to get lost in the sauce and you're going to become a boring person. And I think that only happens to very certain people. I don't, we've always been, I've known you for multiple years. I know that you and I are very dynamic in the things that we like to do and our interests, and there's no reason why you can't put down one thing and move on to the next thing. But during all that time, just make sure that you stay you, that Cynthia stays Cynthia, that the child stays the child, because otherwise it just gets kind of weird and doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. I mean, I think that, yeah, it's there's so many things that I've got going on where I kind of have to like be someone. I mean, I'm not going to say as a performance, but obviously like I am a performer. Mm-hmm. For these various shows, some of which I do things in person. You just did a
live show, yeah.
I just did 2 live shows in the span of 2 weeks. I mean, we did one in London, and then we did one in Edinburgh on Friday night, which was an interesting experience, because fringe venues are always shitty, and like it doesn't really matter how much you brief in advance what you need for tech. Like no one knows anything or has anything, and so it's one of those things where it actually went off pretty much without a hitch. The only technical hitch was their fault and not my fault. They gave us a bum cable, but I had extras and I just swapped it out and solved the problem on the spot. But it was one of those things where I'm really feeling my age, in the sense that like I can fire on all cylinders for that performance, both as a performer and as the person running all the tech. But then like afterwards, I'm fucking smoked. And I realize that having a baby is going to make that worse, in the sense that like there's just going to be a base level of exhaustion that I'm going to be operating on, at least for the first, let's say, year to 2 years. I mean, I realize that like, some people's kids sleep better than others in terms of how quickly they could get with sleeping through the night. My buddy Saf, his daughter is 7 months old, and she has at times slept through the night. Like recently, I had to swing by his place in the morning. He's like, it's 9 a.m. He's like, she's still asleep. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. She's fine. I know she's fine, but like, this has just never happened before. So
I'm going to tell you though that is going to change probably every 3 to 5 months. Like even
I've heard
now,
as much,
like,
yes.
Yeah, even now, my daughter, like not too long ago, was having real struggles like going to sleep. Like we have a set bedtime. She wakes up at the same time. She was staying up until like 10 or 11 o'clock. And for us, what happens is we have the realization that like when she's going through a growth spurt, that's when she can't sleep and she's really crabby and everything. And then like a week goes by and she's fine. So
gotcha.
Sleep is going to be a thing that like sometime like, yeah, the first like year of her life, like I was able to go running in the morning. Like I'd, wake up, I'd go run, I'd walk the dogs, cause the kid wouldn't get out of bed until 9, and my wife works from home. So she was, staying with her and everything. But now she wakes up 6:45 every day. And that's just the life I lead now, is 6:45. But eventually, one day, she's gonna hit puberty and she's gonna become a teenager. She's gonna start sleeping until 10 a.m. again. So it's gonna change no matter what. Like you're gonna get settled into a routine. You're gonna be like, this is nice. I've got it figured out. And then the kid's gonna become gonna turn 3, and then everything's gonna hit the wall.
Yeah,
again,
I went through some periods of not great sleep when I was probably your daughter's age. And I actually kind of had a bout of recurring insomnia, like all through the night insomnia, when I was about 8. And that probably lasted, in terms of like being worried I wouldn't be able to fall asleep or stay asleep until I was like probably about 11 or 12. But I mean, I think the worst of it was when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, where I went through these periods of being like really sleepless. And I never really figured it out. I don't know what it was. I mean, my parents were not particularly sympathetic, so it's not like that was a thing they would have taken me to the doctor for back in those days. It was just,
Did you have a clock in your room?
I don't think so, no.
All right. Because my daughter has that same problem where she'll just be like, oh, well, if I fall asleep now, I'm still awake and it's this time, so I'm not going to get any sleep. And she gets all worked up. So
I didn't, but that wasn't really a thing I think I was worried. It was just more that like I'd go like up until about age 8, like, when it was bedtime, like I pretty much, unless like my brother and I had to share a room and we were like fucking around, like I would fall asleep. I'd go to bed and I'd fall asleep. I can recall very strangely, and maybe this is a false memory, I seem to recall a night going to bed and feeling as though all I was doing was closing my eyes and then opening my eyes again. And you had in Germany, and I think this is still a thing, but back in those days, a lot of houses had these like metal blinds that like they actually mounted inside the window frame on the outside, and you had like a roller thing. They called them rolladen, and you could roll them down, and then like depending on how tightly you closed them, they could like even the slits would close, and so you have no light in the room. And so brilliant in that climate, or that latitude, when the sun doesn't go down to like fucking 9:30 at night, 10 o'clock at night in summer. And so I can recall very clearly, like in my mind's eye, maybe like I said, it's a false memory, a night where I went to bed and the slits were open, and so I could see the daylight, or I could see darkness through the rolladen, and then it's like I just opened my eyes and suddenly there was light there again, and I'd slept through the whole night. So like I don't know, like I said, I genuinely, it's like little kid remembered dream kind of thing, but that to me, like I didn't have a problem sleeping. And then I remember one night my mom asked if I wanted to go on a walk. She felt like going for a walk, probably about 7:30 at night. We went for a walk around town. So I was pretty tired, I would think. And I went to bed like normal, and I just did not sleep. I could not sleep. I think I got maybe 30 minutes of sleep, and I got yelled at for waking my parents up. I got yelled at for doing stuff in my room, like. And then the next night, like I was so fucking exhausted, I had to go to school. And the next night we had like I was falling asleep at the dinner table, and I was like, my mom's like, you need to stay up, and I was like fighting through it. And then I probably fell asleep about 8 p.m. and I woke up and it was 10 p.m. and I was like, I'm fully awake, I'm fully rested, I'm fully awake. And it's my parents still hadn't gone to bed yet, and I was like, oh fuck me. And it was just another night and like you're a little kid, like it's horrible. Like you're so lonely and scared and stuff. Like, and I learned pretty quickly that I couldn't come to my parents with that problem because they just wouldn't, they wouldn't have believed that it was actually a problem. They would just think I was just fucking around and, misbehaving. So it's just sort of like, so you can't read a book because if they see your lights are on, then you get in trouble. You can't go and talk to them. You can't do anything in the house. So you're just sort of like kind of in prison. And that lasted, like it wasn't all the time. It came in like fits and starts, but this happened over and over again from, about 8 till I'd say probably about 11 or 12, like sort of like end of pre-adolescence area, like of my life, I started not really having a problem sleeping anymore. And also like not really being as bothered by, like I had things I could do. Like I had a clock radio so I could listen to the radio really quiet if I was like still awake and stuff like that. Whereas, at age 8 in Germany, I had nothing I could do, besides turn the light on and like read a Calvin book and get fucking spanked for it. You know what I mean? Like, and so, I know this is a long story, but I tell that because it's just one of those things where I remember like, it's, I wasn't a particularly like sleep problems having child, but I remember that period. And like in retrospect, there's almost no explanation for it. It's just a thing that happened and then it kind of went away. Yeah. And so I'm hoping that between me and Cynthia, like her experience with, taking care of lots of kids, from literal birth onward, because of her nieces and nephews. And then, from my experience and then remembering stuff from being a kid, that like we'll be able to keep some of this stuff in perspective and know that like on one hand, if it's bad, it probably won't last. And also if it's like really good, it might also not last. That like stuff just happens in weird cycles and things like that.
It does get difficult to keep those things in mind because like, my child is 8 years old and she's pretty good at like reason and logic and things like that. But, she's still like when she gets angry at something, it takes a bit to calm her down. And that can get incredibly frustrating to have to deal with, especially when you're just like, okay, it's this is the time that you get into the bath or you take a shower, and then this time is when you brush your teeth, and this time is when you go to bed. We do this every night. We've been doing this every night for like a year and a half. Go for it. And she just looks at you and goes, no, I'm not going to do it. And you gotta figure out a way around that because yeah, like your parents would spank you.
Which I'm not going to do, believe me.
No, and it becomes difficult because you think like, well, the easy thing is to do that. But also the really shitty thing, and not like, look, I know there's a lot of controversy or whatever, but honestly, if you think hitting somebody to make them do what you want them to do is the way to go, that's fucked up, man. Like that's not how.
Yeah,
that works.
I'm just gonna say that from my own experience growing up, without going into too much detail, I will emphatically not be doing that. Like, just will not. And quite frankly, like the closest I ever come to fully melting down at people and just beating someone's ass in public is when I see people putting their hands on their kids like that in public. Like it angers me in a way that it's very hard to describe. So I will leave it at that. But that's sort of one of my things about how I hope to be. And yeah, I recognize that, like, you get really fucking frustrated with kids. And also, like, I've dealt with, I've taken care of kids at the age that your daughter's at. Like, it's very funny because, like you said, sometimes they can be great and reasonable, and sometimes they can be moralistic little assholes about the fact that, like, fucking something isn't fair. It's like, I know it's not fucking fair, dude. That's just how things are happening right now. Like, I get it, you know what I mean? But for me, I know that it's going to be a challenge no matter what, and there's going to be times when I've heard that, like, 3 is an incredibly difficult age.
It's the odd years, really. The odd years are hard. The even years are easier. But yeah, 3 is when a lot of the brain of the child starts to grow and morph, and all the, like, 'cause the first 2 years your kid is basically like just kind of a lump that reacts to bright colors and noises and sounds and mom and dad and food and things like that. And then 3 is when they start getting opinions about shit, and then that's when it starts to kind of go downhill for you.
But I mean, I'm excited though. Like, there's a part of me that's just going to be very funny to sort of like get judged by my child at whatever age. Yeah.
My kid will sit down and she knows Marvel comic books like front to back now. Like, just like, yeah, you got your Kindle, you can read comic books on your Kindle. And she'll just sit and discuss comic books with you, like stuff that, like, for me, like, I have watched a handful of the movies, so I know some of the stuff there, but she's, devouring all the comics and everything. And so she's teaching me stuff that I never knew about, all these, different superheroes that I've never heard about. And yeah, but there was never no idea that would have been a thing when she was 2, that this was going to become, she's going to become superhero obsessed 5 years later. It
was funny for me because I used to, I wasn't the babysitter, but I used to take, spend time with my friends and their kids. I worked with someone who ran a creative writing workshop for veterans, and I got to be friends with her husband, and they have 2 boys who are now teenagers, but at the time, this was 8 years ago, they were like 9 and 6. And so me and the younger kid, oftentimes I'd find that, like, he really liked just being like, hey, someone adult, pay attention to me. And it wasn't like there was no reason like he wasn't getting attention at home. It's just more that, like, he thought I was cool, and so he'd be like, oh, well, let's you and me do stuff. And so what we settled on hilariously was he really liked music videos for the band Gorillaz. And so obviously I liked the band when I was in high school, and I knew a lot about the Gorillaz lore, and he was into drawing too, and so he liked that artwork. That style was Jamie Hewlett's artwork style. And so we would, like, watch Gorillaz videos together, and we'd look on, like, the old 2001 era websites at some of the art and, like, the flash animations and stuff to see it. He would draw pictures of, like, the various characters of Gorillaz. I got him for his birthday. I got him like a little kind of cheap suitcase vinyl record player, and I gave him my copy of one of the Gorillaz singles. Like that kind of thing. I just enjoyed the fact that it was just very funny that this was the thing that we settled upon. That was music in a way, but specifically this one band that, like, as someone had pointed out to me, a British friend of mine who has a kid who's about a little younger than he was at the time, is this sort of like, Gorillaz is the perfect band for 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds. I don't know why.
OK Go is also a big one.
You've told me about OK Go, which is, it's funny to see, because I just recall them having, like, one single that was kind of like a top 40 hit, probably in in 2000. And so
the music is meh, but the music videos are that's what you're watching OK Go for. Like they do an entire music video in a vomit comet, like with the weightlessness and all that, and they have one with a bunch of pianos set up that they're driving a rally car and hitting the pianos in certain spots to play different notes. Like it's that I highly recommend them from a scientific aspect, not necessarily from a musical aspect.
I recall them having a song, what is it called? Like Get Over It or something like that was a song that was popular in like the early 2000s. Like
the one on the treadmills, that was their big one that got them noticed.
Yeah, I just recall, I mean, this would have been when I was in high school, and I graduated from high school in 2003, so it had to be something off that first album, I think. This reminds me so much of the early 2000s in a bad way. I don't recall which song it is, so I'll have to look it up. It's not Don't Ask Me that I remember, but OK Go, like, yeah, kind of seems like the Kids Bop version of Hot Hot Heat. So it's just very, very funny that they have actually become a band for kids in some ways, it sounds like. Did you listen to that Kindy? No, not yet, because I've been insanely busy, but I will, I promise.
Well, no, because I mean, like, there's a Lisa Loeb has a kids album. The
Lisa Loeb is fucking good as hell, though, dude. God damn, the Lisa Loeb song from the Rugrats movie soundtrack is like one of the best songs I've ever heard. Like, genuinely.
Okay, but the Verve Pipe too, like,
really?
There's a Verve Pipe song on there called "Be Part of the Band." And
no.
there's Bare Naked Ladies has they do an alphabet song, but with like words that like starting they go through the alphabet, but with words that start with like the letters, but they don't sound like it. Like phone, starting phone, phone instead of p, things like that. There's a lot of people out there that are just like, yeah, we'll put out a kids album. We'll do some. I
mean, they
stuff.
just see that kid lucre, that kid cash. Yeah. They're like, hey, we can. I mean, the Verve Pipe shit, like.
You'd like be part of the band because it's all about picking up an instrument and just going for it, but don't get a manager just yet.
What's funny about the Verve Pipe is that, like, obviously everyone knows them for that song, The Freshman, but they actually have, that first album had two other songs that are actually really good, and the song that I knew them for, that I liked them for, was actually the single that came before The Freshman. I always found The Freshman to be, like, such a tedious, boring song.
Yeah.
Whereas the song Photograph is a fucking banger. It's really good. And the song Villains is actually really good. And they have a song called
really good, yeah.
Hero from the album that came after that. I think it's their self-titled album. That's pretty good too. I mean, like, Brian Vander Ark, big respect to a guy who joined the army and then has a successful band. It very rarely happens. No matter what recruiters tell you, you probably won't, because you'll miss critical things in your fucking life, and then you'll also get accustomed to a paycheck, which makes being in a band hard. But they'll always cite Shaggy. They never cite the Verve Pipe. It's just Michigan erasure. They're racist against the Midwest. That's really funny though that they're on that. That blows my mind.
Yeah, I think it was the Verve Pipe. It was either the Verve or the Verve Pipe.
Well, it can't be the Verve, but the Verve Pipe are British, so I can't imagine the Verve were like, beyond the fact that people knew them for Bittersweet Symphony, like they were a well-known band in the United Kingdom. They still are. It's just that like that one song was like this global hit.
Okay, yeah, it is. Be Part of the Band by Verve Pipe. The
Verve Pipe, the American band from, I want to say from like Ann Arbor, Michigan, I think is where they're from. Like they're very much like a Midwest success story.
Midwest excellence there. So one important thing is to have a date night just once a week, because we work really well on schedules, to have a week that is just dedicated to the two of you. Even if it's just the kid is asleep, we're going to watch a movie, and like me, I make like a little charcuterie board for us to sit on the couch and watch TV and eat cheese and crackers and just like enjoy each other's company. Because you get kind of sucked into a lot of things, and you get caught up in your own schedule, and you forget to like have any kind of, just make sure you're maintaining a level of intimacy with your partner. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that day. You can spend time together as much as you can, but it is nice, at least for us, to have a day that's just like, no, this is our evening. The kid goes to bed. We spend time together, watching something that we want. We do Saturdays because we don't have to wake up early the next day, even though the kid wakes up at 7 o'clock every morning, I at least can pretend that I get to sleep in a little bit. She's at a point now where like if I just stay in bed, she'll like get a bowl of cereal or something. Usually it's just the dog that I have to worry about, but the dog understands that the kid's not going to walk her.
Yeah, my friend's kid was at the age where he, at age 5, when I was visiting them in New Zealand, he was, already kind of, he'd get up in the morning and let his parents sleep and get some, maybe make like peanut butter toast for himself, or at least peanut butter on bread for himself, and like get his iPad and watch stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, so it wasn't, it wasn't like up alone means unsupervised mischief means problems, sure. Like, so even at 5, almost 6 at that point, like he'd gotten to that stage. So, I recognize that like these initial years are going to be a lot. And also like I have a job that, is very, very flexible, but also there are some times when I absolutely have to be in person at things, and often they are non-standard like business hours.
Sure.
And so that's going to be, and Cynthia, obviously, like one of the reasons why they were cool with her being remote is that she said that once she naturalizes as a UK citizen, she wanted to be relocated to Geneva. But when you're in the Geneva office, you have to, when you live there, you have to be in the office 2 days a week. So that's going to create a situation where, realistically speaking, I think what we're going to wind up doing is we will probably seek out to get a place for her in a nursery, and then the days that Cynthia has to go into work will be the days that she goes to nursery. Mm-hmm. So I will try to just cram all of my work in those 2 days if I can. And then also, like, we can work out a schedule, like Cynthia and I had talked about this, that perhaps if I take her to nursery in the morning, then Cynthia can pick her up. And that way, if I have to work late on stuff, I can. And just try to be home. Yeah. If I'm not working from home, try to be home for bedtime. You know what I mean?
You two have been together long enough that you know how to work with one another's schedules. And that's really what's important is because you can come up with all the plans, but maybe you're not going to be able to get the nursery you want, or maybe you can't get one for a while, but you're going to work with it. In
Geneva, you have to get on the wait list for the state subsidized nursery, like before the baby is born, which we obviously can't do because we don't live there. So like, we're going to have to pay for a private nursery until we can get a spot in the state subsidized one, and it's just going to be expensive. And because of that, like, I can't imagine we're going to be able to do it more than 2 days a week until we have that spot at the one, because they do it's subsidized, and based on your income, it's like on a graduated scale of how much you pay. But mm-hmm. but there just basically isn't enough room. There isn't enough space, because once again, it's one of those things where they've done it, but like they don't actually fund it to the degree it would need to be universal. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I agree with you, man. I think the date night thing is really important. And I think honestly, Cynthia and I, like, we're pretty good about it now, but like, it's going to be harder. There's already stuff where there's kind of an excuse to not when like we're busy. And so it's like, I feel as though having a certain degree of kind of discipline about it, like we will do it like a date night, is a really important thing to do. So I'm actually, what I think I should probably do is we should do a trial run date night before the baby comes. So we obviously do stuff together. One thing that we really love doing, and it's especially easy to do here, is to go see live music together. Because bands we like, we just find, comfortable seats in a place and we can go and see bands we like. Obviously that's easier in London, where like basically everyone who's touring Europe stops, as opposed to Geneva, which most people don't stop in. So the closest will be either, if we're lucky, Lyon, but probably more likely Paris. And Paris is like a 3.5 hour train ride away. So we'll see. But, I've written all these down. So to recap, just because I wanted to make sure that I didn't let all of your nuggets of wisdom just go flapping in the breeze. You said your wife won't sleep during labor and you won't either, most likely. So if you fall asleep, your wife might get mad about it. Once the baby comes out, they'll put the baby on the wife and you, take lots of pictures of the baby and your wife, no matter how gross it might seem, stuff you want to document regardless, and it'll be important. Hospital sleeping may be rough. You may find it's difficult. You may not have a comfortable place. And also just in general, like, be prepared to rough it. Get outside, wear the baby. It's good to have the baby, on you, and just do things to kind of get accustomed to the being out and not like hole up. For postpartum depression, you said just feeling depressed for 3 months is actually normal, even if it sucks, and mental health is a huge thing afterwards. And you're going to mess up at times, and it's going to make you feel terrible, like you're the worst parent ever. So mental health is going to be an issue, and just make sure you're talking. There could be complications like feeling depressed, and sometimes it goes away quickly, but sometimes you really do need to talk to someone as well. And it's not a good idea to try to power through. And also just bear in mind, you probably won't be sleeping more than 2 to 3 hours at a time in the beginning. You have to preserve your own identity, even though it's very easy to become child's parent and stop being yourself. That was hopefully not as big of a problem for people who make a living doing podcasts about themselves. But at the same time, you want to like preserve that sense of identity. Date night, where you set things up and you absolutely like make it a thing like, hey, we are devoting time to each other in our relationship, like has served you really well. So did I miss anything on the list?
No, I think those are all the big points. I mean, I could sit here and fill hours and hours and hours more of things that I've learned, but I think like coming into it, your first kid, those are all good points just to kind of look out for. Make sure you don't make the same pitfalls that I do. I'm sure that after the first couple months, you too will have a list for a new father yourself. So, and maybe we'll revisit that. 3 months after your kid's born, we'll talk about the things that you've learned.
My dad experiences,
yeah.
So really quickly for Ask a Dad, this one we can do just to knock out. One question that was asked to us was, what is the best compliment a listener has ever given you?
I don't think there's any like specific one comment that people give to me. I just do like, I enjoy it when people tell me that they like the podcast, just because, there's times when you get the feeling of like, what are we doing this for? Like, I mean, do we really have to do this? Does anybody really give a shit? And it is nice that like, because we're small, we're not that big, and we're probably never going to be all that big.
Yeah, we're very much a niche kind of thing, which for obvious reasons.
But, we have fans and we have people that look forward to us. And so I like that in the Discord, people that I can talk to people and they'll tell me what they like and what they don't like about it. And really, I just appreciate anybody coming forward and saying, hey, I listened to this episode and I really liked what you said. I've actually been getting a lot more since we've kind of moved over to DadChat stuff, is a lot of people saying, oh yeah, and here's some things that I might suggest. So, or experiences that I've had, or I'm really glad that you talked about these things because people didn't talk about them, when I was a kid. So, I try to be open about, my daughter, but not too open. Obviously, I don't want to put, her business all out there.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, like no disrespect, but I wouldn't want to be the sort of podcast equivalent of the bloggers that were constantly blogging about their kids' like private details and stuff, and like, even, there's some people who are sort of like, okay, as a kid approaches adolescence, they realize they can't do that. But I'm always like, but why was early childhood fair game? Like,
right.
That just seems like you're invading their privacy regardless. And so not you, but you know what I mean? Like people, that tendency. And so I want to like talk about certain things without necessarily revealing like, personal or kind of vulnerable moments. But I think I was really surprised and very gratified by the fact that people seem to like the dad chats in some ways more than the military content, which I appreciate. I mean, like, let's be honest, you've been out for a while. I've been out for longer than I was in. So there are times when we want to talk about the military and sort of like not being a chud veteran, but we're also, a parent and soon to be parent, you're in your 40s. I'm going to be in my 40s very soon. And yeah, like there's just a degree to which life goes on. And, I think the biggest for me, I have recently talked about my experiences with going through getting assessed and then diagnosed with ADHD and what it's been like getting treatment as an adult with ADHD, who people just fucking jump out the woodwork to be like, oh yeah, I knew all along you had it. And that's not a surprise to me. And it's like, damn, I wish I had known that. I wish you had told me, because I was going through my entire life thinking I was a fucking idiot. And actually, like, it turns out some of this can be managed. But people have reached out to me and they've said that they are in the beginning stages of starting treatment, and that the thing that instigated them actually going and getting an assessment, kind of like walking through the door of wherever it is to get the assessment, was listening to me talk about it. And that, like, in some cases it's already made a difference. And that's just really gratifying, I guess, to know that people like listen to it and take it seriously, or like are considering it, like that things might open their minds to stuff. I don't think medication is a guaranteed solution. It won't work for some people, and in some people it might work to some degree, but like there's other things you've got to do, and in some cases like the side effects aren't worth it. But I think hearing that like something that we've said, even just like an observation in passing, has been a thing that's led to someone making a positive change in their life. Like this isn't like the positivity change your life podcast, but that's really gratifying. We want to be positive. It's just we're not trying to give you self-help advice. And the last thing I'd say is that probably the biggest compliment, and I've talked about this so many times because I think it comes through how much of an impression it made on me, was in May 2022, Milo and I did a live Britanology, and at the end we did an intermission and then played a 4-song set where we performed 4 of the songs we'd written as the fake band Johannes Vonk and the Clogheads. So we performed Bin Man, Radar Van, Warrior's Heart, and then Honkball, Hoof de Classe on my radio tonight. I know Alice and the rest of the cast who do the stream, the Twitch stream, have used Honkball as their closing music for years now. So the fans all know it. But that room probably seated 60 people. It was completely packed. And I was just staring, singing, looking at the microphone, looking at the piano, trying to press the right chords with the arpeggiator on so I didn't mess it up because I was actually performing it live. And I looked up and I realized they were all singing along. They all knew the words and they were singing along to the song me and Milo had written. And someone said to me, they're like, I saw your face when you realized it, and it was genuinely priceless. And it was this look of like amazement and joy and also just sheer fucking bafflement. But like the other day I was having dinner with a friend that I know through the show, and they said, honestly, it was funny getting introduced to the Clogheads music because like they're joke songs, but the compositions are really good. And honestly, if they were real songs, like regular songs, these would be songs I'd like and listen to on the radio. And I was like, this person didn't know that I'm the person who does all the actual compositions, but things like that. Like that was a thing I never thought I had any ability for at all. Like at all. I had written myself off that I will never play music. I will never be a serious music. I'll never do anything as a musician because like, it's just not for me. I'm not good enough at it. So to have this turnaround happen in like less than 3 years, really, it's crazy. It's fucking crazy. And so I'd say, yeah, the people making positive changes, getting treatment for ADHD because of me talking about it and them, that giving them the confidence, that plus people knowing the words to my stupid song and singing along at a basement show in fucking London in 2022. Like those are some of the, prized moments for me.
Yeah. You realize you don't have to become Taylor Swift or something, but 60 people singing along happily to a song that you wrote, it's got to be a weird and prideful moment.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And it's just like, yeah, you kind of, yeah. I mean, I could talk about it for a long time, but, but we can't because you have a job. You get good, yeah. And I have to do a bunch of stuff around the studio, so I've kept you waiting way too long. So thank you, Francis, for your patience and for your advice. I'll definitely take these points to heart and share them with my beloved wife so I can get her opinion. And if you enjoy this show, we have a Patreon. There's a link in the show notes for that. It's $5 a month, gets you every single bonus episode we've ever done since the beginning of 2017. So that's a lot of content. And if you sign up at a higher tier, then once a quarter, Francis will send you swag like patches, stickers, pins, etc. And so we also put our shows on YouTube if you want to share it with your YouTube addled friends. Francis does YouTube only videos as well now. Those also get shared on the Patreon. And we have a Discord that we share with the Lions Led by Donkeys podcast. So there's a great community there for fans of the show if you're interested. All that stuff is available. If you sign up on the Patreon, you'll automatically be granted Discord access. And if you can't sign up, that's fine. But we'd love it if you would share the show. Word of mouth seems to be the best way people find out about us. And maybe leave us a positive review to counteract the Marine Todd ones that are up there because they're mad that we're not like, so such is life. So anyway, Francis, once again, absolute pleasure talking to you. And we will speak very soon.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next week.